What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel, and on today's video I want to talk about fasted cardio. Fasted running, and of course the benefits to doing fasted cardio and the downside. And this topic is going to require some user participation because I want to know, do you run fasted or not? Do you prefer to eat before you go out for your run, or do you prefer to go on an empty stomach? Let me know, and let's get into it. Oh, before we go any further, this is the weekly running and training vlog where the main purpose of this video is for you to tell me about your week of running. I want to hear about your successes, and I definitely want to hear about those setbacks. And let's talk about fasted cardio. And before we go much further, I did get the idea for this video from marathonhandbook.com, and I will place a link to the article where I got this information in the show notes below. So if you want to read the whole thing, go ahead and check it out. And in this video, I will be referring to studies, but just so you know, I haven't actually looked at these studies, so I don't know how valid they are. But when I say something like studies have shown this or that, just, take it with a pinch of salt. Many of you know that I like to run fasted. I like to get up in the morning, go for my run before I've eaten anything. Now, I do have a cup of coffee, but generally that is all I will eat or drink before I go for my runs 99% of the time. Even when I go for a long run, I won't eat anything before. And I suppose the reason that you may run fasted or you may not run fasted could come down to several different things. Perhaps you just feel sick if you run too close to when you eat. Maybe it's not that extreme that you feel sick, but perhaps you just feel better when you run in a fasted state. For me, that's the reason. Perhaps you think that if you work out in a fasted state, you're going to lose weight, or you're going to burn more fat than you do if you eat and then go for a workout. But I think we're going to be hearing more about those reasons in just a second. So if you have made it a minute into the video and you don't know what fasted cardio is, basically it's doing cardio before you've eaten anything. So you might be wondering, how long do I have to fast for it to be considered a fasted workout? And honestly, I have no idea. I mean, it seems a little arbitrary to just put a number on it, but thankfully we have the article that I can refer to in order to give you a number, and that number is 4 hours. If you haven't eaten within 4 hours of your workout, that is considered a fasted cardio. I don't know, to me that just doesn't seem long enough to be considered actually fasting. I mean, don't we all go about 4 hours between meals during the day? At least, right? Anyway, most of us are going to experience fasted cardio when we eat in the evening, then we sleep through the night, and then we work out first thing in the morning. And that can be anywhere between 7 to 16 hours, which is a long time, but that amount of time with the sleep in between actually works for me. And although I really only work out in the morning, it's a good thing that the 4-hour window is considered fasted cardio, because the thought of being up all day and not eating throughout the entire day and then going for a run in the evening just seems like torture to me. Let me know if you agree. Okay, so let's start off with the benefits of fasted cardio. Number one, when you do cardio in a fasted state, it may increase fat burning. And by that, I mean the calories that you burn during that workout come more from fat than if you run in a not fasted state. And that's because when you exercise, the body uses stored fuel for energy. Carbohydrates are stored as glycogen, fat is stored as triglycerides in the fat tissue, and protein forms structural protein in muscles. Now, your body has limited glycogen stores, so when you deplete those glycogen stores by not eating overnight, in effect, you're running in a glycogen depleted state, and your body is oxidizing fat more to provide that energy for your run. And here we go with one of my studies. Some studies have shown that you can burn 20% additional fat when you exercise on an empty stomach. Sounds a bit sensational, but if it says that studies show it, who am I to question it? Okay, there is also a downside to this upside of burning fat, because while a fasted workout can increase fat oxidation, it can also increase the muscle burning, because the body's going to metabolize the proteins in your muscle in order to fuel your activity, your run. Okay, number two, working out in a fasted state can contribute to weight loss. And by contributing to weight loss, I mean more weight loss. And that's because, again, some studies have shown that people who work out on an empty stomach tend to eat fewer calories in the rest of the day compared with those that eat before they work out. So while I know that it says that it could reduce in more weight loss, seems like a bit of a hack. Maybe not a healthy hack. I don't know. What do you think? I suppose it doesn't mean it's unhealthy. If we're working out before we eat, that can lower our hunger levels, which obviously contributes to not eating as much throughout the day. But it seems to me like there'd be a tipping point. Like after a few days, you'd get ridiculously hungry. But let's just keep our field of vision very narrow and say that if you run in the fasted state, you could potentially lose more weight than if you eat before you work out. Okay, I think number three is a biggie, and at least something that I can relate to, and that's running in a fasted state can reduce GI distress. So sometimes if we eat too close to our run, we can get a bit of a sour tummy, and it could lead to the worst case scenario of needing the loo and not having one nearby. So perhaps if you have a sensitive stomach, you might not want to eat before you go for your run, or at least experiment, find out what foods work for you and what you can handle while you're running. Okay, the fourth benefit of running in a fasted state is that it may provide better blood sugar control. And of course, it is a common concern that if you run without eating, you may experience hypoglycemia or low blood sugar. But studies have shown that it doesn't cause a detrimental decrease in blood sugar, even for those with diabetes. But of course, I caution you about taking your medical advice from some rando on the internet that just likes to run a lot and talk about it to 100 people every week. If you have diabetes, probably recommend seeing a doctor, or at least staying on top of your blood sugar measurements when you're out for a run. And the fifth benefit to running in a fasted state is that it can feel energizing. And this for me is the number one reason I like running in a fasted state. I feel lighter, I feel more energized. And I think this is going to be a very individualized experience. You may feel totally depleted if you don't eat something before you go for a run, or you may be like me and you actively avoid eating before you go for your run because you know you're going to feel so much better. Also, I don't know if this counts for anything, but when I go for a run in a fasted state, and it's not my super early runs, if I'm running a little later in the morning and I'm going to have breakfast immediately after I get back, I really like looking forward to eating breakfast. It gives me a little extra motivation. It's like the carrot on the end of a stick. Anyone else feel that way? Okay, so we have talked about 5 benefits of running in a fasted state, but it's not all bananas and peanut butter, my friends. There are some downsides. And the first downside, even though I said that it can lead to more fat oxidation when you run, is that running in a fasted state doesn't actually lead to weight loss. And again, we're going to resort to studies, but I'm not actually going to give you those studies. But even though you are burning a higher percentage of calories from fat when you run in a fasted state, the research shows that fat loss and body composition were the same whether exercise was done fasted or not fasted. So if you are doing it to lose weight, don't bother. Okay, the second downside to running in a fasted state is that it can increase cortisol levels. And as you may or may not know, cortisol is the primary stress hormone in the body, and increasing levels of cortisol have been shown to be associated with the body holding onto more fat. And this fat that your body has been triggered to hold onto by running without eating is going to be stored particularly more in the abdominal area. So perhaps if you are striving to get that six-pack, you may want to eat before you go for a run. And of course, it isn't only about getting or maintaining a six-pack. There's more of an evolutionary-minded reason for your body doing this. When you run in a fasted state, your body perceives this run with a lack of anything to eat as a physiological stressor. So your body's being stressed, it releases more stress hormones, and all of a sudden you have a big gut. So after that pretty significant downside to fasted cardio, let's move on to number 3, which is also a bit of a nightmare. Because just as fasted cardio can increase cortisol secretion within your body, there is also evidence to suggest that working out or running in a fasted state can result in hormonal imbalances. So in addition to cortisol, and here's the thing, those hormonal imbalances could potentially increase your risk for injury. So let's just take stock. If I run in a fasted state, I'm not going to actually lose weight. In fact, I could gain weight in my abdomen and I'm more likely to be injured. So is this article telling me that if I don't eat before my run, I'm increasing my chances of being a fat injured runner? I don't know, let's move on to number 4. And the fourth downside to running in a fasted state is that it may be detrimental to muscle gain. And as I previously mentioned, if you are running in a fasted state, sometimes your body can burn the protein in your muscles as fuel to help you run, as your energy source. And if we are burning muscle, well, that is naturally going to be detrimental to not just our athletic performance, but our health and our metabolic rate. One more downside to working out in a fasted state, and that is your performance may suffer. And ultimately, your performance suffers when you work out without adequate fuel. So obviously, a car isn't going to run without some kind of fuel. Same for your body. Turns out that your strength, your speed, and your endurance are significantly better when you go into your run fueled. And also, your rate of perceived exertion seems to be higher when you run in a fasted state. And this was actually the thing that I latched onto, because a lot of the times when I run first thing in the morning, I often find that my perceived effort is considerably higher than what my heart rate would suggest. Now, perhaps this could be that I just woke up, had a cup of coffee, and then went out for a run at a ridiculously early hour, but it could also be because I'm running in a fasted state. My perceived effort is that much higher because I don't have the energy to fuel me. So ultimately, I think we all have to do what's best for us. Although I've just given you 5 benefits for working out in a fasted state and 5 negatives about working out in a fasted state, it seems like the negatives really outweigh the benefits. And yet, for most of the time, I don't see myself changing, just because in order to get my runs in, I have to do it in the most convenient way that allows me to get the runs in that I want. And I just don't have the time in order to eat a meal and then go for a run and then go to work. So still, for me, even though all these studies have shown that there are some pretty big downsides to running in a fasted state, I still prefer it. What about you? Let me know in the comments. Okay, I had a pretty good week of running. And when I say I had a pretty good week of running, it was a pretty chill week of running because I didn't run very much. Last week was my last taper week before the Tallahassee Marathon, which I ran on Sunday, and there will probably be a video about that in the next week or so. But it started off on Monday with 7 miles, super easy. I did do 6 30-second intervals with 30 seconds recovery in between just to get those legs turning over. And on Monday, I remember thinking that my legs were still feeling very heavy because I didn't actually do a full taper for the Tallahassee Marathon. I was on holiday the week before and I didn't cut my running down very much on holiday, but it is what it is. Tuesday was another nice and easy run. I knocked out about 10K or 6.2 kilometers and I included 6 45-second pickups with 30 seconds recovery in between. Same reason as the day before, just to get those legs turning over. Wednesday was a nice and easy 5 miles, just going out super early before work. Didn't do any pickups that day. Wednesday's run was more a time of just getting out there and doing something. And then I took Thursday and Friday off. And it's funny that even though I generally follow the Hanson's marathon method for my marathons for the last couple of years, I really enjoy taking those 2 days off, 3 days before my marathon. And I got that from Hal Higdon. And that's something I've just taken with me, and I found that that works for me. And then on Saturday, I went out for 5K, or about 3.1 miles, just going out as a shakeout run. I did 6 30-second pickups with 30 seconds recovery, and then I was ready. Sunday was the Tallahassee Marathon, but you may have already seen something about that if you follow me on Strava or Instagram. And if not, or in addition to, my video will drop in the next couple of days, or maybe next week. Depends how quickly I can edit it. Anyway, this video is a bit longer than I usually have been putting out recently, but if you have made it to this point, why don't you put the roller skate emoji in the comments, just so I know that you stayed all the way to the end. Why have you chosen the roller skate emoji, Matt? I don't know. It was the most random thing I could come up with at this moment in time. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.